Hello and welcome to this episode of Akrinos Access. I'm Erich Mattei, joined by an amazing guest today in Dr. Caitlin Reghetti, as we're going to be having a conversation about patient education in the modern optometry practice. Dr. Reghetti, thank you so much for joining us here on Akrinos Access.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start this conversation. I know we have a lot to get into here as we're exploring about how modern independent private practices can really accelerate their reputation, their patient engagement through personalized patient education. But before we jump into that, why don't you share a little bit about your journey and how you've come to be very much an expert in this area?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in practice for 10 years, and then I have also been in the food blogging industry for the last 7 years. So I feel like I have kind of developed this niche between the two. So I'm very passionate about patient education. And so I've been able to take my knowledge and my experience from optometry and combine it with my more artistic side and what I've learned with blogging as far as like digital presence, marketing, branding, writing, content creation, and just the overall contribution of SEO.
Awesome. It's amazing too, and I know we get the opportunity to collaborate quite a bit, and to see what's an aligned, organic online reputation can do for a practice is just astounding, right? And I know some of the stats that we talk. What is it? What's that big one? The biggest one: 86% of younger Americans are relying on the internet for healthcare information because they feel confused or uncomfortable about addressing things with the doctor. So in that regard, I mean, clearly folks are gravitating to the internet for content. So why don't we speak a little bit about just how that manifests itself as far as what practices can do and like kind of what are the options? I mean, is it like, should you go be hiring an agency to do this stuff or you do it all on your own? Kind of help folks kind of understand a bit what we mean by this personalized education.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the important thing for growing organically on social media is two things. So, it's going to be frequency and then it's going to be creativity. So, when it comes to your social media accounts, you really want to build that relationship with your followers who are essentially your patients and your prospective patients. So, the content that you put on there, you want it to be valuable to them. You want them to be able to connect with it. You want to build that relationship. You don't just want to kind of regurgitate some stock photos at them and think that that's enough because you have frequent posts going out. You want to share more things like, patient testimonials and photos of your office and staff. Use your social media platforms to unveil new instruments that you get, lenses that you have, frames that you have to offer. You can do like doctor spotlights. And then another thing I think it's important too is doing candid photos of your staff just to add that kind of personal touch to be able to connect with people.
So it's really, I know sometimes we talk about, letting that digital presence really be like a lens into the practice where someone can really experience it. To your point, engaging organic content, perhaps around new equipment, spotlight the staff, new additions to the optical, what have you. But it's pictures are great. But I think it's important, and particularly considering that stat, the fact that folks are also looking for content. It's not just smiling faces with people having fun, but actual educational content. So, how does that kind of cross in this realm? And when we refer to educational content in the digital world, what are we referring to?
I mean, I think just providing little snippets of information, so facts, stats, links to your website or even other websites, just to provide accurate information, because there's just so much health information out there in the world that's incorrect. So anything that we can do to direct our patients away from Dr. Google and to something that's reliable is definitely helpful. So creating little infographics for your social media, I think, is just a simple way to share that important information with your patients.
Yeah, yeah. And then let's talk a little about this world of blogging. 'Cause I know that's something I guess it's kind of fascinating how your hobby, you find your hobby as a blogger
Mhm.
has found its way into realizing that wow, there's a lot of private practices out there that and they're missing this. It's such a great opportunity to inform and engage patients in the community. So why don't you speak a little bit about the world of blogging and what makes good blogs, bad blogs? I know that's kind of like a world unto itself. So why don't you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when it comes to website content and blog content, it's really important to have custom content that's going out regularly. So just, copy and pasting a bunch of information onto your website isn't really enough to um, compete with other websites, other practices. So a lot of like third party companies that will write content for you have a tendency to maybe do some keyword stuffing or some copy and pasting where they're using the same content for multiple practices. So it's just really important to have authentic, custom content on your site.
And I suppose here for those in the audience that may be a bit less familiar, if you ever hear this term SEO, search engine optimization, tossed around, Dr. Reghetti, isn't that right? Like if content is being used in two places, then it may impact that rank or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
Now it's getting some advanced digital stuff that
I
I
know,
know
right?
this about. Let me this way. I know enough about it to know that it does need to be addressed, right? And again, this is all about helping, um, helping practices continue to engage, provide value in their community, and as such, continues to thrive and grow themselves. So let's talk also then about some in-office education, right? Because I know you're a big fan, and one of your interests that kind of threw you into this direction of what you're doing with Dr. Reghetti OD Designs, which I'm looking forward to you sharing in a few minutes here. But that being said, patient education is something you've always been very passionate about. So why don't you speak to that a little bit and the role of that in-office education with patient compliance, patient loyalty as such?
Yeah, I love the aspect of patient education, just being able to talk to people and tell them things that maybe they've never heard before. Like they may have a diagnosis they've had their whole life and it's never really been fully explained to them. I am somebody who I communicate better in verbal or in written form than I do verbally. So I assume that other doctors can be the same way as well. So it's nice to have like concise, accurate information that I can hand to my patients that kind of reiterates what we've talked about already and then provides them with more information so that they can read more in their own time. So I think that doing that is really important because what's that stat? Oh, yeah, the 86% of people feeling uncomfortable or confused during their exam. It's really nice to give them that information that they can leave with. It can have like a QR code on the back to go back to your website, just so again, they're referring back to us as their source of information rather than going out into Google. And I think it's especially important for those handouts to be custom and to be branded to your company, because I know like if I were to go to a doctor and they were to hand me just a generic mass produced type handout from like a pharma company, it's helpful, but it to me feels impersonal and like almost a little bit dismissive, versus if they hand me something that's custom created, that makes me feel more valued as a patient that they actually took the time to put that together for me. So I think that's really important. And just all of that combined, I think really helps with saving chair time. It also helps with staff because they don't have to field as many questions when the patient gets up to checkout. So it's really nice to have that to be able to provide to our patients. And it doesn't have to be anything, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just, take some of the information that you have from some of those generic flyers from lens or pharma companies and put your own spin on it, create your own.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what this is? It is a huge value to the patient, right? Also, it's a huge value to the practice because I think it's important. Something you pointed out earlier, um, and the reason how and why increasingly it's important for practices to have clinical content accessible on the site, become the expert, right? If to get to a point where perhaps the patient would come to your site to educate themselves on something rather than going to Google. Now that's going to be tough because Google's the king of search, as we all know.
Right.
But anyhow, this all really kind of plays into, again, growing the brand of that practice through that personalized practice branded content. So we're talking in-office education, impact there. We also talk community marketing, and I know as you know, we work with a lot of cold starts, and community marketing is awesome. It's a ton of fun to do. Getting people through launch. So community marketing, best practices, leveraging content. Share some thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think the more creative you can get with that, the better. So I've seen a lot of my clients that are coming up with just really creative ideas of how to reach out to other local doctors like pediatricians, endocrinologists, just to work on that co-management relationship and then to get that information over to their patients as well so they know who they can refer to whenever they need anything for their ocular health. So I think that's really important to put that stuff out there, make it creative, make it branded, make it interesting. So it's something the doctors want to provide to their patients and something that catches the patient's eye if they just happen to have it, sitting with all their other million flyers that they have in each
Yeah,
exam.
absolutely, love it, love it. And something else you mentioned also is that when you have that personalized branded content, that's where it always ties back to you, right? It always ties back to you, and whether that is with contact information right there, QR code, link back to the website, it always ties this back to you. The practice is delivering that value to the patient, right?
Right.
So okay, so we talked about um, educational content, like printed educational content, as well as community marketing, right? And by the way, printed educational content in modern times isn't always a flyer or a brochure. It could
Mhm.
be a business card that says dry eye, scan here. And then maybe you have another card for myopia management, scan here, right? As far as having these. So then we're handing out little cards with all of education. So I just wanted to toss that out there. Caitlin, I know sometimes you and I talk about this and it's like it's the norm. But for some viewers, some of these concepts are kind of really new school. But well, they are new school, quite frankly. Okay, so we talked about the branding content. We talked about blog. Let's talk a little bit also just about the website, right? And what the stat, over 70% of patients will find a new provider if the website is lacking. Um, Now, that being said, I think it's important for folks to consider what of the website can be fully outsourced to the web company, but what of the website you really need to be engaged in for it to operate at its best. So
Mhm.
why don't you share a bit of insights on that front?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to like a website hosting company, them doing the actual site build out, the structure, trying to think of an analogy for it. It's almost like trying to build a house where they're in charge of all of the framing and all of the plumbing, all of the electricity. They make sure everything is running correctly, everything is legal. And then you're responsible for filling it with all that good stuff. So you're responsible for putting the content on, information about your doctors, your staff, services you offer. Um, it's just definitely going to come from a more authentic place when it's written by you or when the content is written by a doctor to make sure that it's accurate, rather than outsourcing that and it can come back kind of flat.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the best example of that that clip you showed me that came across in one of the online professional communities within the last couple of weeks But so Dr. Reghetti, it was what? That was an optometrist. They had their practice, and then what? They noticed the picture that the third party that does their social media, the picture like didn't fit their practice or something.
It was, yeah, it was a picture from a dental office. So it wasn't even in the same field.
Oh my goodness. Um, so okay, so that being said, and I suppose that's maybe like kind of the perfect way to kind of pull all this together and be like, because let's face it, it's a very exciting time to be around eye care. Truly, I mean, the need for routine vision and the need for medical eye care continues to grow, and independent private practice is in the midst of such a remarkably exciting time and a remarkable future ahead. But to be able to provide for patients and communities, you have to stay relevant to how people consume content, how people engage. So really fascinating stuff you share with us, Dr. Reghetti, all around, patient education. So why don't you now share us a little bit about, so this all started with you kind of having some observations and kind of doing some little freelance stuff here and there for some of your doctor friends. And now, why don't you speak of the scope of work that you do within your business?
Yeah, so the way that it kind of started out was actually the office that I work for now. My boss offered me the opportunity to go through and rewrite all of the content for our website because it was in need of a revamp. So I did all of that, and I realized like, wow, this is really fun to do. And what I like to do and what I'm good at as far as writing and design is something that a lot of doctors have no interest in at all. Like my boss included, he's like, I don't want to write these, but I want a doctor to write them. So you're perfect for this. I kind of expanded then into creating some like myopia management handouts and different things for our patients. And I started thinking, man, this could be something cool to do for other local optometrists. And then I realized I don't have to be local. I could really do this all across the country for anybody who could benefit from it. So yeah, I've gotten now into even more website writing, blog writing, brochure creation, a lot of social media designs, really just anything that doctors need. I mean, I stay pretty flexible and it's all kind of a la carte as far as what do you think you need for your practice and how can I put that together and make it happen for you. So that's been fun just because there's a lot of, again, creative ideas that are coming my way from different practice owners that just keep expanding my my knowledge of what's available out there and what we can do as far as modern marketing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And look, Caitlin, as you know, I can speak firsthand, as our clients can speak firsthand. We have a lot of Akrinos clients that work with you for your design services and your blogging and all this remarkable stuff, education content. By the way, I'm really geeked up. I know we have that client getting ready to do some a big myopia push. Really excited for everything we're doing on that front. But okay, so for viewers that would like to maybe pick your brain a little bit more or perhaps engage you to help them, how can they connect with you?
So I do have a portfolio website that has a lot of information and also has all my pricing on there. It's just my name. So it's kind of a long name, but it's CaitlinReghetti.com. And you
Caitlin
can
Reghetti.
CaitlinReghetti.com. Yep. And there's a link on there, like a client request form, but you can always just email me directly to the client request form is nice because I know that I'll receive those and I don't have to worry about it going to spam. But my email is listed on the website too, which is just my name at gmail.com.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, Dr. Caitlin Reghetti, thank you so much for joining us here on Akrinos Access. And
Yeah.
also, thank you for being an ongoing collaborator and partner within Akrinos. Our viewers out there may also know you as being our clinical liaison within Akrinos, and we love having you and are so excited with all these really insights that you brought here. Really remarkable time opportunity for private practice. So thank you for joining us on Akrinos Access. For viewers, be sure to follow our YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us across the socials, and visit akrinos.com frequently for a lot of really great conversations with awesome people like Dr. Reghetti. So thank you so much, Dr. Reghetti. Have a good one. Take care.
Thank you.